Hey, welcome back. I'm Dawn Westmoreland, your talk host of The Empowered Whistleblower. My show is about blowing the whistle on strategies to empower others. And I'm so delighted to have Shannon Knapp. She is a local in Asheville, North Carolina, coming from WPVM FM LP 103.7, the voice of Asheville. My show airs every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone. And because it's syndicated, it may be picked up at a different date and time. Shannon Knapp is the director of Heart of Horse Sense. It's a nonprofit dedicated to providing professional equine assisted therapy and learning for survivors of trauma in Western North Carolina. I'm going to jump in and say I have also been involved with some of her programs. They're so amazing. More than ever, we are struggling with mental health issues across the global. Shannon, would you agree? How is your
Absolutely.
how is your program benefiting others?
Well, our main focus is to promote mental health and well-being through the horse-human connection, right? So that's kind of a mouthful. We do equine assisted psychotherapy or counseling with horses, which is straight up therapy, just like going to an office with a small room and a fluorescent light and a therapist there asking you questions. Except our office is much bigger and who's in the office is different, but we're still doing some of the same work that you might do in an office environment. We're just doing it in a more holistic, somatic way, a body-centered approach. We also do well-being groups, which are things that really focus in on mindfulness, self-compassion, skill building for the emotional, quote unquote, soft skills, communication, stuff like that. And that's what our groups tend to focus on for those who don't, they've done therapy, they don't need any more therapy, or they're not sure about therapy, but they want to find out what horses have to offer them and why horses.
Mm. And I love that. Why horses? Now, I grew up with horses and I'm 60 years old now, but I grew up with them, but it was a different experience. It was more of, fun, riding out in the woods, riding in the springs in North Florida. And
Yeah.
we had this wonderful horse named Boozer. And I mean, I was so bonded to him. I was a shy child, and it's like he pulled me
Yeah.
into more confidence. Now, how do
Yeah.
horses do that? How do they
Yeah.
change us?
Yeah, yeah,
Goodness.
absolutely. Well, I think one of the first things that happens is that horses are like non-judgmental, unbiased, don't care how much your tennis shoes cost, what kind of grades you make, what your parents do for a living. They don't hear or know any of that. So we don't show up feeling kind of one down or behind with horses in the way that we can with people. So that's first, I think, and one of the greatest gifts that they offer us. Don't care about all the things that people, even well-intended, kind people, can't not see the things that kind of mark who you are in this world, your race, your gender, what kind of car you're driving, right? All of those things, even if we say they don't matter, we notice them, right? And we still react accordingly. And horses don't. So it's just this really clean response to who you are inside without much regard for who you are outside. And that is a really nice gift. So I think that's one of the core ways that horses really help people learn how to reduce their own anxiety, how to build their confidence, because they get to show up who they kind of really are without all of the trappings getting in their way.
So you work with all kinds of people. Let's talk about some of the people that you've worked with because you've been doing this a while, Shannon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been about 20 years under one form or another. I've been in the equine assisted therapy and learning field. And we have focused through the years on lots of different populations. The common thread has been trauma. So one of the first things that we really specialized in was working with gang involved and incarcerated youth. So we worked with kids that were, had some really tough felonies and had behaved really badly, and were locked up for it. And what we found, of course, was that their behaviors stemmed out of the experience of trauma. Not an excuse, but an explanation, right? So then we moved on to working with, after that, unfortunately, the facility near us, the Juvenile Justice Center near us closed. We're like, we have all of this experience working with trauma and PTSD. Where could we best turn our attention to? And of course, we had all of these veterans coming back from their post 9/11 deployments and the 22 a day, suicides a day of veterans. So we're like, wow, this is really well suited. It's also really well suited because many of our veterans don't want to sit in an office with someone asking them how that makes them feel. They don't want therapy. Just like our gang involved kids, we're not going, woohoo, I get to do therapy with horses. I'm convinced that if those clients, those boys, and these adult veterans, if they knew what the right answer was to fix it and get out of the office, they'd do it and never actually make the change. Because it's so unique and different, this causes people to have to show up for real, and that we get under a whole bunch of defenses really quickly, which moves the therapy along much more quickly too. So we have expanded to work with trafficking survivors, first responders, anywhere where trauma is overriding, and really that's all of us. It's just a matter of degree. Right. And those who have a higher degree, complex trauma, complex PTSD are often those who are particularly resistant to traditional office therapy and traditional office therapies. So we deal with heavy complex trauma. We also deal with garden variety, depression, anxiety, the usual stuff that brings most people into therapy in the first place. So it doesn't have to be this extreme experience. There's something about one of our earliest ads said, tired of talking, right? And it had a picture of a horse. And, and if talking were all that were necessary to heal us, we could do that pretty easily. I mean, it's a simple process. But as the author, the famous Dr. Bessel van der Kolk said, the body keeps the score. So if we
Mhm.
don't deal with the somatic and the physical and the physiology and the neuroscience of trauma, we ain't getting the job done. It's not gonna heal itself. So yeah, those are some of the things. I kind of veered from who we work with to how we work with them, but that's a bit about who we've served and continue to serve.
Very important too. And I'd like to acknowledge your husband, Richard, is retired Air Force veteran. And so thank you for the support of the veterans. I know how important that is, being a veteran. And I was so honored to be in some couple of your programs and also come out when you had some kind of a court event.
Yeah.
Yes, so
We had
amazing.
we had the Veterans Treatment Court, which is basically a drug treatment court, but it's specifically for veterans. And they held court on the farm. And then we offered experientials. And that's the part where you, as a representative of someone who is a real veteran and has really done this, can say, yeah, it's not all puppies and balloons and kumbaya. There's
Mm,
real benefit in this. And here's what it is, because that's usually the perception that this is, crystals and, zenning out. And sometimes it is, but that's not what our goal is.
yeah. And to our listeners, I just want to share that I was able to give a testimonial at that event. And, even though I'm a life coach, I'm retired from the Air Force and I consider myself pretty, stoic, I had some unresolved trauma in me and I didn't even know it until I started working with the horses. And you have this adorable little bruiser donkey. I mean, you have minis, I mean, it is a sanction. I'm getting chills talking about it. I
Yeah.
just, I broke down and cried. I didn't know I had that in me. And here I thought I'd worked through all my trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well,
amazing.
and that's the other beauty of the program is that all of our horses come from a less than nurturing background. Something happened that wasn't great that ended them up in the shelter or being seized by the sheriff's department or whatever. And then we've become a sanctuary for those horses and pair people with these horses to help both of them. So if it's good for both, if it's not good for one, if it's not good for both of us, it's not good for either of us eventually.
Mhm.
So if I'm getting my needs met at your expense, it hurts both of us eventually. It hurts you immediately. It hurts me eventually because I am doing these things that are potentially counter to my own best intentions, my own best good.
Shannon, like you said, you've been at this over 20 years. What got you into this kind of work?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I noticed you have a master's degree, and I imagine you have tons of skills out there. Why horses?
Well, so I also have my own journey to healing and recovery, and it involved animals. Animals as this non-judgmental, connection relationship. So I knew the healing benefit of animals. I'd been a crazy horse girl since I was born, right? So I loved horses and I had wanted to make a change. I came from academia and higher ed and all that. And I really wanted to get back into my body because I was a walking head on a stick. I was going to the library and back, and that was it. So horses really grounded me and brought me back into the present moment. And I knew that they were doing things for me that were well beyond having fun on a trail ride. I knew that there was growth and development happening. So I became interested in therapy with horses through what most people think of when they hear therapy with horses, which is therapeutic riding, which is people in wheelchairs or stroke victims or others like that riding horses. I started in that field, but I became so much more interested in the emotional and social and spiritual benefit and less interested in the physical. And therapeutic riding is usually aimed at the physical. So I became interested in the kid that never talked talking or the person that didn't smile smiling while they were
Mhm.
riding. So I'm like, what if that was our goal? What if we went straight at that? That coincided with me, my husband and I moving from Texas to North Carolina, being right down the road from a horse rescue. We had been rescuing big dogs in Texas. So I wanted to do the same thing with horses, and the planets aligned, the universe obliged, and there's a rescue right down the road, and we started with 2 horses, and we now have I think 28 on the farm. So yeah, yeah, that's how it happened.
And where are you located? I know, but the listeners don't
Yeah, we're
know.
just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. We're in the town of Marshall. Many folks may be aware of the downtown Marshall area was recently devastated by Hurricane Helene. So we're just a couple miles up the hill, blessedly, from the French Broad and from downtown Marshall. So we're right just outside of Asheville and Marshall.
And I just want to add that I'm aware that you and your husband and your team helped locals during Hurricane Helene when people were stranded and their animals didn't have food and the needs that they had to have.
Yeah. Well, we did much less of that. There were many other boots on the ground that were doing that work. And I use that term boots on the ground literally because it is appropriate. I don't like to use that term when there aren't real military helping. And this was real military because boy, we needed it. So we knew that our time was not going to be shoveling mud out of buildings. Our time was going to be 4 months after, 5 months after, six
Mhm.
months after, when people are starting to wake up, they have food, they have shelter.
Mhm.
Now they're starting to wake up to the experience of what they went through. People aren't sleeping at night. They're, breaking down and crying at inappropriate times or what feel like out of the blue. So this is our time. This is where we serve because people don't know how trauma impacts us, right? And so what people are going through right now is normal, but it doesn't feel normal. It feels it feels inappropriate. I was getting my eyes checked the other day, and this woman who was helping me with my eyes was telling me about her mother, who in the past 4 months has only goes to work, comes back, and gets in bed and doesn't get out of bed.
Oh
And
no.
and also, starts crying and tearing up at odd times. And I'm like, oof, yeah, that's totally
Mm.
expected. And here's our business card, right? I can't be more clear than there are many ways to work through trauma, and we're one of them. We're one of them, and that we're hoping to get people through disaster relief money, the mental health that they're going to need, and that we're really starting to come out of the woodworks now. a bit like post-COVID. We saw a 75% uptick in requests for services post-COVID, and we're expecting the same post-Helene.
Are more and more people reaching out for your services now?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And we've responded with, groups that we call stable and safe, and just a chance to come connect with others without, we kept getting reports of there being therapists at some of the emergency aid distribution centers. And of course, people in Appalachia aren't going to go talk to them when they're trying to get water and they're trying to find baby formula, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's only there's a cultural thing, and then there's also has Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They were in the lower part of the hierarchy. Now they've gotten a little higher up, and they're starting to notice what's not okay. So we started doing these stable and safe groups just as a container for folks of any experience that lived through Helene, to come together and not have to talk about it, but to get some, oh, I call it well filling. I get my well filled through snuggling a horse. Yeah, it's there's all kinds of answers. There's all kinds of scientific answers for why that works. But that's one of the things that we've been doing, in addition to adding more to our caseload of individual therapy.
Yeah. And I've enjoyed petting and combing and brushing and hugging on all those sweet babies. And you've got a horse, a Palomino. I had a Palomino,
Uh-huh.
Malibu Barbie.
Yes.
Malibu
Yes.
Barbie.
Yeah, Malibu Barbie is she's a very special girl. She's very stoic. She's very calm. One of a client that is working with her quite a bit says she's the boundaries girl. She's the one who holds it. She's got her clear boundaries, and she's really clean about expressing her boundaries without making you wrong or bad, and without feeling guilty about having boundaries. She's doing all of this wonderful work with these clients that oftentimes are, projecting what they need to learn onto the clients, or they're observing what they need to know and learn through how horses show up, because they're not apologizing for having boundaries. They're not apologizing for who they are, and they all the things that we do that don't necessarily serve us. There's such uniqueness with horses.
Mm. And you've got some wonderful programs coming up that we want to talk about and get that word out so that other people know about it.
Yeah, we have a program that was developed actually in Salt Lake City, VA, and it is called Whispers with Horses. And the subtitle is really where the juice is. Whispers with Horses: Mindfulness, Self-Compassion, and Horses. So everyone knows you're supposed to practice mindfulness. Well, what does that mean?
Yes.
Right? What does that mean? Do I have to sit on a cushion and with my legs crossed, levitate? What does it mean to practice mindfulness? Well, we offer mindfulness and self-compassion skills, and then we go practice them in real time with the horses. And so, for example, one of my favorite stories that came out of our pilot last year of Whispers with Horses was, the clients were going through some activities where they were asking the horses to step over obstacles or around things. And at the end of the activity, I'm like, did any of you think that it was an appropriate and helpful thing to yell at the horse when they failed to go over the jump or over whatever the obstacle was that we put out for you to navigate? And everyone was like, God, why on earth would I yell at the horse for doing that? Then the question from the therapist comes in, and yet how many times do you yell at yourself for your failure to do something
Mm-hmm.
that you think you should, like, I should be through this trauma by now. I should be over this. I should be,
Mm-hmm.
all of that self-talk. And you could just see it register with clients, because we are oftentimes so hard on ourselves in ways that we would never be with another human, another horse. And there's just that moment of self-compassion of, oh my gosh, I'm so mean to me. That's so not helping, right? So Whispers with Horses is a 6-week course. We practice skills and we build on skills over time. You build a relationship with a particular horse and you stay with that horse through the whole 6 weeks. And you grow and they grow and you get to grow together and learn from each other. It's really an excellent program that's being studied at Purdue University right now. We have a series of pilot programs around the country and we're all doing this program and we're going to be collecting the data and sharing it. But whether the graphs come out right or not, that it works. And I know you know, Dawn.
Yes, I've seen your progress. And, to the listeners out there, Shannon is pretty well known in our area and much farther than just the local Asheville area. She has an incredible reputation and her husband for the work that they're doing. Shannon, what do the horses get out of all of this?
Well, they get the same kind of growth and development. So many of our horses, as I said, come to us from less than nurturing circumstances. So they also get to learn how to build relationships and connections with humans who haven't always been safe, right? People in general haven't always been a safe connection for them. They learn how to connect with someone, how to determine who it's safe to connect with, how to build and deepen a relationship, and how to work through their own blocks and obstacles. So right now we have 2 horses that are 20 years old, which is pretty old for horses, that spent their first 20 years never having been touched by a human.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I
And
can't imagine.
so they've got all kinds of strong pathways in their brain that say no to humans.
Mhm.
Well, they're going to end up in not good circumstances. They're going to end up abandoned. They're going to end up in
Oh,
slaughter if they can't
yeah.
learn to get along and learn that relationships are good and relationships are safe. And so we're trying to help kind of rewire those pathways in their brain that allow them to connect with us. And over the Christmas break, oh, not too long ago, the holiday, my husband and I were able to halter both of those horses. So we've gone past the touching point. We're able to halter.
Oh, that is amazing.
And sometimes our clients help us with this process. And that is, I mean, the impact of having a horse that has every good reason not to come near you,
Mhm.
choose to come near you, choose to let them touch you. I mean, it's hard work and it's definitely reflective of the hard work that our clients are having to do too. And there's so much compassion that comes for themselves through the compassion that they know how hard it is for this horse to reach his nose out just a little bit. And, so the horses get healed, the people get healed, and it's just a win-win all around.
People love stories, Shannon. Let's hear some testimonials of people, that have talked about, the programs and what are some of the benefits that they've mentioned to you.
Well, so many of our trauma clients and trauma and PTSD, one of the first things to go is the ability to sleep. And sleep's kind of really stinking important. And when you can't sleep and when you're all keyed up, things don't go well, right?
Mhm.
Nothing goes well. So one of the first things that we hear about most often is the ability to sleep at all or the ability to sleep through the night. One of the next things we start to hear about is that I'm able to reduce my anxiety myself without drugs, without intervention. I know how to kind of calm myself. And the technical term, we'd call it regulate. I know how to
Love
self-regulate,
that word.
how to take care of myself. Um, and so we hear that. We also hear about just the acceptance and the compassion for themselves and the journeys that they've been on. And they've been oftentimes trained to not pay attention to their needs and this is true of military and the general populace. A lot of folks have been trained not to pay attention to what they need or not to listen to it, to power through, to muscle through. And I'm not saying we all need to be kumbaya and puppies and balloons, but there's an amount of compassion for yourself and kindness that we can't extend to others if we don't extend to ourselves. And so we learn both and that I hear folks say, A lot of our veterans come out and like, I don't want to be puppies and balloons. I want to be able, if I need to fight, I want to be able to get to fight. We're working with a
Mm,
lot of first responders right now, a lot of police officers, right? They need to, I want them to be appropriate to the moment, no matter what the moment calls for. If the moment calls for fight and self-defense, I want you to be able to get there unfettered. No problem. I can get to that if I need it. But I also, and this is where a lot of what the work we're doing comes in, if the moment calls for sitting on the couch watching a Disney movie with your kids and your internal alarm system is on 10 screaming that you're unsafe and you can't sit still and be with your family in that moment,
mm,
that's where we want to start making some shifts. So many folks either get, as we say, stuck on high, all go, 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 all gas pedal, no brake, or they get stuck on low. And what we want to do and what our veterans and our clients generally say is, I get control of that knob again. I get to say where I am. I don't get set on high and have to live like that and vibrate through life. And I also don't stay in bed 24/7 when I'm not at work. So I get to have control over that rather than the world dictating to me what I can and can't do. So those are some of the benefits that we get real time. And it's amazing to watch that happen for horses and for humans, right? To watch that spark come back into the eye of a horse that's been, beaten with a
mm.
2x4, to watch that spark come back into the eye of a veteran who is prone to panic attacks, being able
Mhm.
to go places and do things that he wants to do and not be afraid, and not be afraid of being afraid.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
And I'm somebody that was rated with major depression from the Air Force just because the situational things.
Yeah.
Life happens, and then we've got to help ourselves and not bleed on other people.
Yeah.
Shannon, what does a good day look like in your organization?
Oh gosh. A good day is when we have a small group of Whispers with Horses clients connecting. I guess one of the things, and the group that stands out for me the most is when we've had a military sexual trauma group come out. And the military sexual trauma group, we, like most civilians, were expecting a bus full of women, and it was a bus full of men. So it was a really big shift for us. It was a big
Oh,
blind spot for us.
mhm.
And these men got off the van to come play with the horses, and they're like, no eye contact, hats down,
Oh
sunglasses.
yeah,
No
like
one,
hoodies.
no, yeah, hoodies. No one is making any connection at all with us. And within 2 hours of being with the horses, the hats are backwards. They've gone back. The glasses are lost. They're
Wow.
hanging over the horse's neck and asking us questions about, so what happened to they're asked the connection, the time it took for them to go from here to here can be so fast and so makes such an impression, right?
Mm.
That's a good day. It's a good day when a sister of a veteran who dragged her brother out to the farm um, comes over and whispers in our ear. That's the most he's talked to anyone since he's been home.
Oh my.
I just things like
Ooh, I
that.
just get chills when you say that, Shannon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just doors open that are closed in ways that to traditional therapy. And so that's a good day. It's a good day when, you see the light in the horse's eyes too. And
Mm.
they kind of give you the side eye like, "Oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know I you just back up. I know what's needed here, and I'm going to move in and offer this, like wraparound hug, or I'm going to, show a little attitude to show I'm not all puppies and balloons. And, they know what needs to happen way more than we do. We're so encumbered by this great big brain, and they've got this great big heart and this great big sensory being. They know what needs to happen in ways that we don't. And so
Yeah.
sometimes our job is to step back and let them.
Shannon, we're down to the last 30 seconds. How can people find out more about your services, contact you?
Yeah. So heartofhorsesense.org. And that's heart, like the organ, of horse, HORSE, sense, like common, all run together. And there's a whole bunch of S's and E's in there. So pay attention because it gets confusing. So heartofhorsesense.org is our basic website. There's information about our veteran services, about our therapy services, about groups. There's a newsletter, sign up for that and get occasional updates on what we're doing because we just respond to what our community needs. And so what we offer changes all the time.
Shannon, thank you. You are amazing, beautiful soul. Thank you for supporting all the people with trauma. I know I've benefited so much from you. To listeners, stay empowered. Reach out to Shannon. We'll see you next time.
Uh,